Welcome, everyone. My name is Sonali Majumdar, and I am the Assistant Dean for Professional Development at Princeton University's Graduate School. Since 2019, the Graduate School's GradFUTURES Professional Development Program seeks to empower our graduate students to succeed in Princeton and create futures that are fully their own. We do so by tapping into our global network of graduate alums to learn about a range of international career pathways and emergent skills. Today's panel is the second of the summer panels on international careers, and will focus on science and engineering industry careers in different parts of the world. On behalf of the Graduate School, I sincerely thank our graduate alumni panelists today who are joining us from France, Singapore, and the United Kingdom. The international career panels will make way for a new professional development learning cohort this fall called Thriving as an International Scientist and Scholar. This cohort is specifically tailored to the distinct professional development needs of international graduate students and will be offered every Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. starting from September 16th and wrapping up on November 18th. Today's panel includes a moderated section, which is followed by audience Q&A. The moderated section of today's panel would be recorded, but we'll stop recording right before the audience Q&A. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderators and our outgoing GradFUTURES Professional Development Associates, Margarita Belova and Yun Choi. Margarita is a graduate student in electrical computer engineering, and Yun is a grad student in civil and environmental engineering. With that, Margarita and Yun, please kick off the panel by introducing our graduate alum panelists.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to start introducing our speakers. Lindsay Wilmer is a research engineer in Google DeepMind Science team in UK, where she currently works on generative AI systems for scientific use cases and was previously a core member of the AlphaFold 3 development team. Prior to joining DeepMind, Lindsay completed a PhD in neuroscience from Princeton University, advised by Jana Witten and Annegret Falkner. Prior to her PhD, she worked in DE Show Research and earned her undergraduate degree in computer science from Stanford University.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yun Choi. I will introduce two of the other speakers. Dr. Athena Lee graduated from Princeton in 2022 in molecular biology. She bridges science and strategy as a Princeton-trained molecular biologist and former BCG consultant in the US. Now, leading AI and quantum-powered drug discovery at techno company Alchemia in Paris, France. She steers the company's internal portfolio and drives innovation from concept to clinic. Please welcome Dr. Athena Lee. Next, I want to introduce Claire Radley. Dr. Claire Radley graduated from Princeton in 2016 with a PhD in atmospheric and oceanic science. Originally from New Zealand, Claire returned to Australia following her study and took up a role in McKinsey & Company. Based out of Melbourne, Claire traveled extensively and worked on a range of projects from healthcare to mining to private equity. She found a love for large-scale industry operations and focused predominantly on mining work. In 2019, she took a role as GM strategy for a steel distribution company in Auckland before returning to the mining industry with Rio Tinto in Brisbane in 2021. More recently, she has relocated to Singapore to lead Rio Tinto's steel decarbonization strategy team. This global role combines many aspects of previous roles, including her PhD, and it's a great way to meaningfully reduce global emissions. Welcome, Dr. Radley. So I would like to thank our panelists for joining us today again. And now I would like to start by asking our panelists a question to know their career path. Please, everyone who's in the Zoom call, drop in any questions while listening to the panelists' story. Also, we also invite our speakers to reply in the chat if they want to. So the first question, could you walk us through your career journey from grad school to your current role? what motivations or factors influenced your decision to pursue an industry career abroad? We're going to go with alphabetical order first name, so I will ask Athena to speak first.
Great. So thanks for the kind introduction, Zoe and Yun, and thanks everybody for joining the panel discussion so early. My career journey is a relatively short one, I would say, because I graduated in December 2021. So I've only worked for about 4 years now. After grad school, I went directly to Boston Consulting Group in New York to start being a consultant, where I worked mainly in the healthcare practice area because I graduated from the mobile department, and I think that's really where my heart is, and is still is there because I'm working in drug discovery. So at BCG, I worked across really multiple aspects in the healthcare industry, from pharma, medtech, payers, providers, etc. And it's really fascinating to see, not just from the scientific part where I learned a lot, for which I learned a lot at Princeton, but also to really understand from the other side of the table how decisions are made, how the, let's say, a bigger machine orchestrated, for example, as a pharma. But then I would say after about a year and a half, 2 years at BCG, I realized that my passion is really not to become a businesswoman per se. I really want to be the bridge, at the intersection between science and business. That's really why I joined BCG in the first place. So I started to look for opportunities at that time, not necessarily, like a full job hunting, but really to start doing coffee chats or like expanding my network. And that's when I met the CEO of my current company, Akimia, Emmanuel, who was also a BCG principal, but in our Paris office. And we chatted for like twice, and she kind of dragged me into the recruitment process, saying, this is a very interesting opportunity for you because we're working really on the cutting edge AI-based drug discovery stuff. And it really fits my passion, where I get to see, the strategic, technical, scientific, operational, different aspects of the drug discovery program. So I would say the biggest factor that influenced my decision is really to, how can I say, to not be picky and let's say decide to take a leap of faith, because I couldn't speak French at the time. I didn't know anybody in Paris. But I thought that, it's a really good opportunity. I feel like it's the right timing for me to maybe experience a different culture, a different ecosystem. So I moved from New York to Paris about 2 years ago. And it's been really fascinating since. It's very different. It's not, especially in the start, it's really not easy, but I feel like I've learned a lot, I've experienced a lot, and I don't regret my decision. So yeah, happy to later on talk more about my experience with more questions, but I'll stop here.
Thank you. Claire?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Claire. So I graduated a while ago now, so it was December. It was 2016. So my PhD was in atmospheric and oceanic sciences. So climate change modeling basically. And so I think you could say that pretty passionate about decarbonization, but somewhere along the journey of doing my PhD, I sort of came to the conclusion that I didn't want to do pure science forever. I didn't want to keep doing modeling. I sort of wanted to, I guess, do something different, broaden my skill set, but I didn't really know where to start. And similar to Athena, I ended up in consulting. So I joined McKinsey and Company. I did so in Melbourne. So I moved from Princeton to Melbourne. I sort of missed, I'm from New Zealand, so I sort of missed that part of the world. And there wasn't a New Zealand office, which is how I ended up in Melbourne. So there wasn't a huge amount of logic in it, but worked there for a while. I learned just a huge amount. I got exposed to so many different industries, so many different types of projects. I did do some healthcare, I did mining, I did due diligence, I did I did some work in the food space as well, dairy farming in New Zealand. So like I did a bit of everything and sort of got to figure out through that process what I enjoyed, which really was mining, which I never would have guessed in a million years. Like coming from doing climate change research to going to mining, like it feels, it's not what you would expect, right? Um, and so I guess along the way, I've done a couple of different things. I worked for a steel company in New Zealand for a bit when we went there for my now husband's work. And then I joined the mining industry directly when we were living in Brisbane in Australia. And that was in-house consulting. So it was sort of more of the same type of work, but was referred through a McKinsey colleague. Um, and then, similar to I think what Athena did, have coffee chats with people. And I was having a coffee with someone who was also a New Zealander, which is how I got introduced to him. And he said to me, "Hey, I've got a job in Singapore. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't even really looking for a job. Like, I'm quite good with my job at the moment because I just returned from my second parental leave." But it was for steel decarbonization. So it was sort of combining everything, steel decarb strategy. So it's basically looking at the world's steel emissions, which are 9% of global emissions, is from the steel industry. And it's thinking, how do we, as a mining company that provides the iron ore, we're the world's largest mining company, how do we play our role in that? How do we help support our customers? How do we develop technology? How do we develop the right products for a decarbonizing world? And so that's really what I focus on now in Singapore. So it was my fifth international move. So I don't know if we're getting better at it or not, but it was even more interesting this time with two little children. But really enjoying Singapore. It's such a multicultural place. Everything is so close. Coming from New Zealand to not have to fly for like 5 hours to go to any other country, it's amazing. Um, and yeah, just sort of it won't be forever for us, but for now we're just sort of soaking it up and enjoying it. And I'm learning all that I can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just it took me a while. I first thought that mining industry is blockchain industry. And then just later I realized that it's not related to blockchain.
Yeah, slightly different.
Yeah. Lastly, Lindsay.
All right. Great to be here. Thanks so much to the organizers and for all you student participants out there for waking up early. That's no easy feat, I remember. So I've been working at Google DeepMind for about 3 years since I graduated from the neuroscience department with a PhD in 2022. My work during my PhD was sort of a mix of computational work and experimental work. So fundamentally systems biology and mouse models, studying depression. And then after my PhD, I was thinking, I really liked my project, really enjoyed doing research, but I wanted to do something sort of at an industrial scale with industrial level impact. So I searched for positions doing research at companies. And one company that really stood out for still staying in the scientific domain was Google DeepMind. The founder is a neuroscientist as well by training, so that was a nice fit. And they did a lot of projects that I was aware of in the space of molecular biology, chemistry, a few others, maths and computer science. So my journey was really just to put my resume into their online application portal. One day in between writing my paper and going into the lab, I just threw my resume in there. Not necessarily expecting to get a hit, but I was lucky enough that they decided to interview me. The interview process was daunting since it's sort of a multi-stage technical interview, and I had to refresh all of my skills and pieces of trivia knowledge that I had memorized as a computer science undergrad. So it wasn't terrible, but had to spend a few hours doing that to prepare. Managed to get through the interview process, and now my day-to-day work is actually not too different from my PhD. That mainly as a research engineer, you're troubleshooting your experiments all the time, designing new experiments to answer the problems that you think are important. And once you solve a problem or think that it's impossible to solve a problem, you sort of make a lot of design decisions about which problem you should go after next. And the scale of the problems that we work on is really large and really cool here at DeepMind. So for example, this project AlphaFold was really nice in that it tried to solve this protein folding problem where you predict the structure of a protein from its amino acid sequence. It's a very old problem. And once you know the structure of a protein, there are a lot of problems that are unlocked by that, like how do you design drugs that could bind to proteins that are misfolded in diseases, so on and so forth. So we thought this was a very foundational thing, and it was great to work with the Nobel Prize winning team that did that. So that was a very fortunate experience. And since that project has sort of wrapped up, I started working on language models and seeing how we can apply these new foundation models to problems in the sciences as well. So that's been really nice. I'll rewind just a little bit to discuss how I got interested in industry research positions in the first place, which is that in between undergrad and graduate school, I actually took a couple of years off of school to work for a company, D.E. Shaw Research. And there it was fairly similar in how I found them, or actually a little bit different in that one of their recruiters reached out to me and said, oh, we're holding a Women in Computing conference. Do you want to come? And I said, okay, sure, but only if I can interview for your company. So they let me interview for them. And then Princeton was really nice in that they let me take 2 gap years. So at the same time as applying to that company position as a senior in undergrad, I also applied for grad school. So that was really nice. I had sort of runway lined up at the time. So I had a great experience in industry, sort of learning how to, again, troubleshoot research projects in an independent way so that when I went into grad school, I could sort of hit the ground running. And yeah, since then, I've always loved research and don't think I could work in any other domain really. What else can I say? Yeah, I moved to London for this job, which I guess is the point of this chat, to talk about international experiences. So I'm American. I grew up in the US and had a very brief stint living in Berlin in undergrad for a study abroad program. So I knew that I liked living outside of the US, and the UK is really not that different. And I should say that the visa process is quite convenient for someone with skills. Generally, if you're employed by a UK company, they'll sponsor your skilled worker visa, and it's a pretty smooth transition process. Since I've gotten here, British culture is a little bit different, which I didn't quite expect. I thought it would just be like, oh, moving from New York to another city in the US, but it is kind of interesting to experience all of the subtle cultural differences, and being able to travel to Europe really easily is really nice as well. And finally, I'll just say that if you're an American and scared about moving to another country, it's actually amazing how many American expats you'll find suddenly become your friend when you move to a new country. And for better or for worse, I think the majority of my friends are still American, since the experience of being expat has really brought us together. Okay, I'll end there. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. And we are going to move to the next question. And this time we'll switch the order. So we'll ask Claire, Lindsay, and Athena. The question is, what resources and strategies are most effective for finding global internship or industry position as a PhD? And do you think that internship experience necessary for securing an industry job abroad? So Claire, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I can. I don't know. I mean, in my experience, moving into consulting, I guess it wasn't directly connected to my PhD, so it was maybe a little bit of a different situation. But the way that I did it, and the way that I sort of, I guess I know that colleagues have done it, is it's really all about finding some connection, finding someone that can advise you through the process, who can sort of link you in, particularly abroad. I think I know, for example, here in Singapore, we get a lot of applications, right? So it's just how do you personalize it a bit, and I think a lot of people, I'm always happy for people to reach out to me. It's just sort of making the most of your network in whatever way you can.
I see. So probably it's I don't know, it feels that it may be like leveraging your network connection is more important if you're searching job internationally. Um,
I mean, in my experience, it's a really important domestically or internationally. Yeah, I think just having connected with somebody on their personal level, just makes it a bit easier to get your foot in the door. Yeah.
okay, thank you. And can we go back to Lindsay?
Yep, sure. So I think the country that you're applying to work in, I think, will determine a lot about what expectations you have around the application process. Luckily, in my personal experience, the UK, I think applying for jobs is not too different from applying to industry jobs in the US. And in my experience, technically, I work for a Google-owned company, so this is an American-based company in the end. So the application process was luckily something similar to what I was expecting. On the other hand, I know some friends who have applied to work in Switzerland, for example, and in some industry positions, networking is very much a face-to-face experience, and people want to sort of talk to you, chat with you, get to know your personality before they move to extending an offer. So really get to know sort of what the culture is around working and the places where you're trying to apply would be one piece of advice. And I think I missed it, but there was another piece to your question.
Yeah, so it's about internship experience. And what do you think? Is it really necessary to secure a job position in your country, which is UK? And do you think that if you have internship experience in USA, it also counts?
Yeah, I think I would say so, that any relevant work experience is generally applicable, sort of on a role by role basis, I would guess. And that in general, if you're applying to positions that are looking for PhDs, people who have domain expertise, especially, you don't necessarily need to have industry experience. So yeah, I would probably say that this is more of a role specific question, at least in my experience.
Yeah, so like in USA, it looks like that majority of people really need to do internship before applying to industry job, especially in tech, because otherwise it's really hard to compete. Is it the case in UK as well?
I think it is extremely useful to have an internship. Oftentimes, internships can lead to conversions to full-time positions, in particular in tech. But I know that at least where I work, it's not necessarily true that you have to have internships. Sometimes people who have PhDs in relevant fields, so for example, someone like you who's doing research in reinforcement learning or other technical disciplines could theoretically get a position straight out of grad school without internship experience.
Wow, that's sounds very encouraging. Thank you. And finally, Athena, do you want to add something on that?
I really agree with what Claire and Lindsay said. So to me, connection is also very important, honestly, everywhere. But also to Lindsay's point, the culture is quite different in different countries. And I feel like actually, I would encourage the PhD students to leverage the more open American culture because in general, people accept like, let's say LinkedIn messages or, email requests for a coffee chat, etc. But it's not always the case, for example, in Europe. So actually, if you do have potential connections like Princeton alumni or people in the company that you're interested in, that share similar experience, or just even a cold email, I would really encourage you guys to do it, because that might be really like the start of something that you don't know yet. But at least you should try. And in terms of the strategy for finding global internships, I would say probably the most important thing is to know what you want to do, because it really differs. For example, for Claire and me, if you guys are into consulting, BCG, McKinsey, these kind of companies, they have very standardized processes, and I doubt if like a connection would really help you that much. You probably just need to follow the timeline, be prepared for your case interviews, etc. Versus if you have something very specific, then let's say a more tailored approach might be really helpful here. So the most important thing to me is really to understand what you want to do, like what is the best way to prepare for yourself. And that's linked to the internship topic, because to me the most important, because I also do interviews for the company, and I feel like the key factor of selecting a candidate is not really whether the person is competent or not. It's really whether let's say the person matches what the job needs. So for example, I do have colleagues who never did an internship during their PhD, but they actually got the job because they had good publications or you had a research experience somewhere. Versus if you're into, let's say, more business oriented, or like, I don't know, in a field like what you just said, Margarita, that people generally expect an internship, maybe that's necessary. So it's very hard for me to, let's say, generalize it. It's probably, I would say the best thing to do is probably really to know what you want to do and do a bit of research, talk to people, understand how people in general in that area navigate their career path, and try to learn something out of it, versus having a more generalized strategy.
Thank you. Actually, that kind of ties to the next question. The next question was supposed to be about the job application, but since you guys covered it, mostly, I want to ask a little bit of different question. How did you build the professional networks in your new country, or do you keep still network with people in the US? Or what strategies help you find like mentors or opportunities? Do you have it still in the US, or do you find new mentors there and also keep in touch with people in the US? Can I ask Lindsay first for this question?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So how do you maintain and build your network across different countries? And I would say, yeah, definitely try to maintain connections with student friends and advisors from Princeton times. Do so by, I'm still on my lab Slack and check in from time to time, which is kind of fun. So I'm going to one of my mentees' dissertation talks next week, which will be really fun. Try to answer as many LinkedIn messages as possible. So not just to necessarily reach out to people when I'm in need, but to volunteer for things like this, or answer questions from people. I think that you never know when those people might turn out to be helpful for your career trajectory in the future. So definitely keep those opportunities open. And then once you get to your new country, I think for me, my career network has grown not just from meeting people at my job, but also from meeting like a big group of expat Americans here with diverse industry experiences. So learning a lot from that group of people as well. So I think that's it for me.
I see. So mostly did you find these connections or these groups through LinkedIn, or is it like through this one friend and then it gets to the bigger group? How does that work?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is actually like the main place where I get questions from people. Although the more people you meet, you might find one of these hub people. And I have a few hub people in my life that have somehow collected a gigantic group of friends. And then you get added by those people to giant WhatsApp groups for their flat spam, so talking about moving house, or career spam, where people are looking for job opportunities. So this is another way to grow your network, is through these hub people.
Gotcha. So finding the hub person is very important. Gotcha. Athena, how did you build up your network?
I would say I'm still probably in the process of building my network in Europe. It naturally expanded, of course, with my new colleagues, friends in France. But I feel like I'm trying to attend more and more the, let's say, in-person events in Paris now. I would say I'm probably not the best example, because in the first year I was too scared to go to events like this just because I didn't speak French. But actually, a lot of them are also in English, and you realize that people are in general very nice and very international. And that really helped me to, let's say, meet new people and understand more the ecosystem. But of course, I try to maintain my connections with ex-colleagues, friends from BCG, actually a lot of people who I've never met but supported my job hunting in Europe. For example, I reached out to random people for coffees or for, potential job conversations. But then in the end, I decided to go to Paris. But I tried to still every 6 months or so email those people, provide an update of where I am, asking for like potential opportunities, like kind of maintaining this connection. But I'm telling myself not to force it, because it's also very easy to, at least for me, get panicked, feeling like, I don't know anybody. Is that a bad thing? Or, do I have to do it? I feel like it really has to be natural for you. If you really don't feel like it, don't force yourself to do it. Naturally, it's going to come. When you feel the need, it's going to come. So take it easy is going to be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems that Athena really loves coffee chat, and I just have to confess that I really love coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like it's a very nice way to put it. It's I mean, I'm having more and more real coffee chats, luckily in Paris. But I feel like an online 20-minute conversation will definitely leave an impression to somebody. So next time when you catch up with each other, when you have a second conversation, it'll feel different. So I would really encourage you all to, if you want, reach out to. I'm speaking for other panelists, but I feel like we're probably all open to coffee chats, and it can be a start if you have never done it.
Thank you. Also, thanks for the invitation. Definitely, we will do that. We will also encourage students to do that too. Lastly, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, I think initially I probably, like, when I was still at Princeton, probably made quite a concerted effort to like find people to talk to about what next, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I sort of went through like my department just asking like what have other people done that's not going and doing a postdoc, right? And so I sort of started that way. And people were really open to chatting and then helping you through the recruitment process and coaching and all of that, which I did interview for a couple of different sort of pathways before I decided to do consulting with McKinsey. So I think initially I worked on my network quite deliberately. I think once I started at McKinsey, people always say you really should work on your network and stuff. I don't know. I find it a bit awkward at times, right? Just going and catching up with people because you should, because you need to like meet everyone. And now I just catch up with people that I enjoy catching up with. And normally it works out, right? So I'm really lucky. I've got really, really good friends and mentors in Perth, in Brisbane, in Melbourne, in New Zealand, in Montreal. I worked with some people in Montreal. London now, like people just like move around, so you end up with like this amazing network, and they're just really good friends. And I don't know, that's sort of, I don't know, it's worked really well for me. And then, you know, when you get in a bind, you can also just call them and be like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So that's sort of what my networking has become, just sort of what I enjoy rather than doing anything too deliberate. Yeah.
I hear the similar story from Athena and Claire, so I guess keeping in touch with people that you enjoy talking and
Yeah.
catching up with
Yeah.
them once in a while. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just also very helpful for your mental health, especially when you feel you're immigrant.
Yeah.
So the next question, does the job open a pathway to permanent residency? And what challenges did you face with visas, work authorization, and how did you overcome them? And we'll go again in alphabetical order, so I invite Athena to take this one.
So I would say it's much easier in the EU to deal with all the work authorization and permanent residency thing. Because so currently I'm on a thing called European Blue Card. It's kind of like a talent passport. It's in between the American Green Card and H-1B visa, meaning basically when you apply for it, it grants at least I think 2 to 4 years. I don't know exactly the details, but basically maximum 4 years of a residency in the EU, and you can work. Your spouse can work. You know, it's very close to a permanent residency because basically after you renew this card, you can very easily get a PR card. And you can also change your job, if I understand correctly, within the duration of your blue card. Different countries have different regulations. For example, France, you do have to stay on your first job for 2 years before you can change jobs. And I think in Germany, it's like 18 months or 12 months, I don't remember. But really, it's very easy to get the card. You go to I have the French word in my mind, but basically you go to the police station, you collect the card, and that's it. And the companies, they're also, at least based on my experiences and the shared experiences among colleagues, it's also very easy for companies like sponsor this kind of work authorization. The only thing is you need to get a salary above a certain amount. So yeah, to me, honestly, it's a very smooth process, and I've never heard anybody having trouble with the, let's say, immigration process into Europe. The roadblock is finding a job, but once you land somewhere, it should be very easy.
Yeah, I think that opportunity for your spouse to have work authorization is really important because as I think in USA it's a quite complicated process. In even if you're on work visa, your spouse is not allowed to work.
Yeah, and also I don't know if you guys know about it, but the healthcare system is also very different in EU. You do get a lot of like governmental coverage, this kind of insurance. And under this type of visa, you and your spouse are both under the same level of coverage as, let's say, a French citizen. So it's a really good visa, I would say.
Thank you. Claire, what's your opinion on that?
It depends. So in Australia, I got permanent residency through my job. So um it was very straightforward. Um so I mean, I'm a New Zealand citizen, so it's a little bit different. I'm allowed to work in Australia by right, but I have a lot of friends, including some from the US who got jobs in Australia, and very easily got permanent residency. I think you have to work for 2 years in the country on a visa before you can apply for permanent residency, and it takes a little bit of a while, but it's not hard to get. It's just a bit time consuming, and companies are generally pretty happy to sponsor you to do that. So I think especially if you have a specialized skill set like a PhD, they have to show that, there's not a local person who can do the same job, right? But that's normally pretty straightforward if you've got a PhD. Similar for New Zealand, Singapore is very different. Singapore is it's a great place to live. You get a very high salary. There is very low tax, but there is a lot of regulation. So your spouse does not have the right to work. They have to get sponsored to work in Singapore. You have to have a certain income for your visa to be granted, and it's based on age. So the older you get, the more money you have to make, or you don't get a visa. You can get permanent residency, but it is it's very difficult, and it's not clear what the rules are around who does or does not get it. So Singapore, I think is in a little bit of a different bucket, which for me is why we'll be here for, I don't know if it's 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. But Australia is definitely much more straightforward, and I think it's really important to take into account those other elements that Athena mentioned, like healthcare. Because I mean, I guess everyone in America knows how expensive it can be, but in some countries, yeah, it is provided. And I think it's also really important when you're looking at employers to understand what you are and you are not covered for.
Do you think that in Singapore, your company is very supportive and it manages immigration, paperwork? Is it the case for USA?
Yeah, I mean they're super like it is so easy to move here. Like it's such a streamlined process, right? The way that they manage all the visas and everything. Like it's super easy. And I think that's true no matter where you're from. I don't think it's dependent on nationality at all. Um, it's just complex because companies here, they have to employ a certain percentage of Singaporeans versus internationals and whatnot. So depending on what the company is, it can get it's just a very much a case by case basis. But if you were to get a job, it would be very straightforward to get all your visas and everything.
Gotcha. Thank you. And finally, Lindsay, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so with respect to the UK, immigrating is relatively straightforward. So I think pretty similar to Europe. When you first move over, there are going to be like a series of logistical hoops you'll have to jump through. You'll have to go in person to do your background check, just to get your visa stuff settled. And then moving over is also pretty straightforward. If you have a pet like I do, it's a bit more complicated importing animals into the UK, but it works out in the end. And in general, paperwork and what happens behind the scenes is handled by your employer. That's really great. And if you're American, I think coming to the UK, you don't even necessarily have to have a job at first. I think you can stay in the UK for up to 6 months without having a job on a standard visa. And then if you find a job, then you can have your employer sponsor you for a skilled worker visa. And then the path to permanent residency and citizenship is similar to what I think Europeans or people who move to Europe experience, in that you stick around for a certain amount of time. So in the case of the UK, the current rule is 5 years, although I think that rule might change soon and might be more like 10 years in the future. But currently it's 5 years that you stick around, and then you get permanent residency, which means that you can leave your job but still stay in the UK as long as you want at that point. To get this residency, you need to take kind of a fun test in the UK where they test you on trivia about royalty and English culture, etc. So that's kind of infamous, but not too bad. And then a year after you get your residency, you can apply for passport and citizenship.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's very informative. Yeah. So this is the end of the moderated part of our conversation, and we're going to transition to the live Q&A. So Amanda, can I ask you to stop the recording?